All right. I know people are going to be popping in as we continue the conversation or start the conversation, but I want to respect those of you that popped in on time. So I would like to welcome everybody to our webinar today. It's entitled Stronger, Safer, and Smarter Injury Prevention in Action. I think the important part of that is in action, not in theory, but what actually works for on-site programming. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Melissa Gill. I'm a physical therapist and owner of On-Site Solutions Physical Therapy. I love this space. I love talking about it, and I love being in the spot of preventing things from happening versus waiting for people to get hurt in that musculoskeletal space. So, without further ado, I would love to introduce and welcome both Abe Ward and Nicole Weinhold today. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And if you guys can kind of tell us a little bit about where you were before you became an on-site physical therapist and kind of why you chose to do this and any kind of benefit or anything you've realized after working on-site that it's just kind of like it's a different way to be a physical therapist. So Abe, I'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, so I have been a physical therapist for about 10 years, been working with on-site for 3, based out of Maple Grove, Minnesota. So right up in the same area as Melissa there. And I started working with on-site because in the first 5 years of my career, I was working primarily with injured workers in Washington State. Fantastic programming out there. But I ended up seeing a lot of people throughout the entire course of care. Saw work conditioning, work hardening, FCEs, and one case in particular was a 4-year case that this individual got to me for a functional capacity evaluation. And then reviewing her case, I'm like, man, all of this was preventable. It's just like all the wrong things that happened throughout through her care. She's ended up getting a tendon transfer in her ankle. Near and dear to my heart. My wife's actually a foot doctor. So like seeing these things happening, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't like this. And that kind of started me down the road of looking at, is there a better way to do this? Worked a couple of different outpatient ortho jobs in between, and then landed with on-site. And since that time, have just really found that there is a good way to do injury prevention, and we can get ahead of things, and have absolutely loved that aspect. And obviously, there's no way of knowing if I prevented any tendon transfers from happening in a 4-year case, but I like to think that we have. So it's a little bit of my story.
Awesome. Thanks. Nicole, welcome, and let's get a little bit of intro and history from you.
All right. Well, yes, thanks, everyone. My name's Nicole Weinhold. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I've been a therapist for a significantly longer chunk of time, more in the 20+ year range. And I had worked in outpatient clinics basically my entire career. I had been heavily involved in a sports clinic. I had worked in a podiatry clinic, foot and ankle injuries for a long period of time. And I really liked what I did. Like I liked treating patients. I liked helping them through their injuries, getting them back to normal life. I think that's why most people become physical therapists, right? We want to help people. And so I came into the world of on-site care in a little different way. I wasn't really all that intentional, to be honest. I found out about the job with On-Site Solutions and just kind of was really intrigued by what being a physical therapist on a construction site would look like. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I didn't know a lot about it. But I was at a point in my career where I was very happy doing what I was doing. I was very comfortable doing what I was doing, but I had done it for a long time. And I think it's always good to push yourself, try new things, see what else is out there. And so I decided to take the leap and became a physical therapist on a construction site. And it was very different, very different. But it's been the best move ever, just because I think working in a clinic, you definitely have the capability of helping people and making giving them improvements in their life and things like that. But working on site in someone's workplace is a totally different way of connecting and interacting with those individuals. You touch them at a different level. You have the capability of kind of affecting their life and their health in a more holistic way. And so I really love it. And there's so much to be said, like Abe said, from just helping people realize the value of their own health, their own wellness, and helping them understand their bodies and know what they can do to be more proactive and self-reliant in taking care of themselves to prevent some of these injuries from happening. And when things do go wrong, being the person there to be able to give them that advice right away, so that, you know, we don't end up in this scenario where it's been mishandled, mismanaged, poor advice, like over and over and over again. So they end up with a surgery that they maybe didn't need. Yeah, that's my story.
Awesome. I mean, I think it's really interesting to see where you guys came and really, like you said, I mean, honestly, Nicole, maybe not as intentional as Abe of how do we do that better, but then finding that you're using your physical therapy brain in a different way, because I'll ask both of you this question, but engaging with those employees is probably one of the most important things that we have to do to build trust and build rapport. What have you guys noticed that has really worked for you to build trust, build rapport? Because we can all agree they're not going to come to you if they don't trust you. If they don't know, like, and trust you, they're never going to come to you. My favorite people are the most angry, curmudgeon guys and gals that do not want to talk to a physical therapist. And I've already tried stretching. Nothing's going to make me feel better. Then you get that guy or gal to like you and to actually see value. That's a game changer. So how is engaging with the clientele? What has been the most important factor for you to do that? And tell a little more about that trust and being the first provider that they may see. Who wants to start?
Sure, I'll hop in.
Okay.
I think it's been kind of boils down to two things. It is one, not trying to sell anything, not trying to give them another visit or get them into the room. It's just like getting to know people. And then two is curiosity. Just asking questions. I think those have been two of my favorite things about actually being the on-site provider and being out on the floor. I work mostly in manufacturing, so manufacturing industry, distribution, that kind of stuff. So we call it just walk the floor time or floor walks. And I will just, anytime I go to a new site, which is something I get to do with a lot of my contracts, is just like get people set up in a site. So I'll get out there and meet people. Just go and ask, like, hey, what's your name? What are you working on? And then just learning, because it's fascinating. It's to see how all this stuff is made. Like,
yeah,
it's like being in an episode of how things are made every single day, which is a lot of fun. But as I'm learning, we're hearing all these things, and people take great value in what they create too. So you get to see what's important to them by asking, what are we working on? How does that work? You'll hear their pride, but then you'll also hear their pain, right? So you can hear the things that are tough about their job, of like, yeah, I'm working on this, but this is always kind of a tough reach, and I don't love how that works. And so then I can just file that away in my memory bank, and I can sit on it for a little bit and see, okay, do we have a solution for that? Or does this individual have a solution for it? That's usually what it is the worker already knows what can be done. And so being able to just listen and hear those things. And then when we come back to that individual with a solution that they already thought up, but it's actually it's in action, then we've gained trust. And then they'll come to see us because they know that we care about them and we know what we're talking about. So it's a lot of curiosity. It's a lot of walking around and being the mayor. It's just, if I could drink coffee on the shop floor, I would just be walking around drinking coffee and talking to people. Most of the shop floors I can't drink coffee on. So, but that's the kind of the mentality that we'll take to it, is just we learn. And once we've learned from the individual, then we gain the trust, and then we can actually make change. Then they'll come see us.
Excellent. We're going to get back to that point in just a minute about the solutions that the people you're talking to may have, and truly bringing together our knowledge as physical therapists and the person doing the work. But I'm going to hold on that for a second because I would love to hear Nicole's answer about the benefit or how important engagement is with the people that you're serving.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's definitely no substitute for just being present. Like Abe said, one of the most important things that we can do is show interest in what they're doing, have them talk to us and tell us, what do you do each and every day? What is the purpose of this? They love to talk about that stuff. And as he said, they often know the areas that are difficult and where maybe they need some help with it. But I think even before you get to that point, it's really just being present, but being present on a regular basis. When you're there each and every day and you're interacting with the same individuals, a lot of the conversations we have are not necessarily going to be about work tasks or, their body problems and things like that. It may be about their kid's soccer game that they went to last week. Just being present and being there on a regular basis and interacting with them, sometimes on non-work related issues, is really the first step. That's how you gain their trust. They really can see you as the person that is there to help them, not to harp on them to do things faster, right? Or get the job done in a different way.
Right.
But once they see that we are the people there that really care about their well-being and we want to help them feel better at the end of the day, they do gain that trust. And they sometimes you end up affecting people in unexpected ways. I mean, on the surface, most of the things that we're trying to change and intervene are these musculoskeletal things. We want to make your aches and pains in your body feel better. But often, when people do open up to you and come to talk to you about those things, a lot of other things can come out, and you really can have a pretty big impact on somebody's life in more far-reaching ways. Just being the person that truly cares and will listen to them sometimes is something that these individuals have never experienced in their life. And so it really, I can't really say it in a better way other than you just go out and you just talk to them, each and every day.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that that's sort of where, my career has ended up, because when I was a young high school person, not knowing what I wanted to do in life, I went and observed a physical therapist in the clinic. And my thought process at that point, as like an 18-year-old, was like, oh, you just kind of sit here and you talk to people all day. Like, that sounds cool. I could do that. And so now, after like a million years of school and education and experience, ultimately that's what we do. But we have so much knowledge and so much value behind those interactions, that you pound a lot of value into something that's seemingly just kind of a fun off the cuff conversation. So
important. Thanks, you guys, because I think we can never underestimate the value of that relationship, right? Because we might be the only people that I'll say worker as a general term, we may be the only healthcare provider they talk to or trust, right? So thinking about physical therapists, and you guys being physical therapists, being the only provider they may see, or especially the only provider that's on site, which is most typical for us, what would you say is the most important part of collaborating your physical therapy brain, which is a much different brain than other healthcare providers have? So taking that PT look at things and then working and collaborating with the worker, what value does a physical therapist brain bring to the work site or to the manufacturing floor that may be unique if somebody doesn't understand what physical therapists do?
Nicole, I've led on too. This one's yours. I'll follow.
sounds good. Perfect. All good.
Yeah.
So yeah, PTs do have a really unique way of looking at the body, how it moves. It's been said that PTs are movement experts. Ultimately, the body is it's a machine. It's put together with levers and joints and connectors, and it does function similar to a machine. And when something is out of position or something isn't balanced, then the machine isn't going to work well. And that's where you get breakdown, you get pain, you get injury. And so a physical therapist really has the capability of just we're just really good observers. You know, we can watch someone walk across the floor, and based on how they're moving, we're pretty good at picking out, oh, they must have a knee problem, or they've got issues with their hip, or man, they obviously have had a back injury or something previous to that. It's kind of a curse because you can't really walk through the airport without analyzing every person you see. But so it's a curse and a gift at the same time. But that physical therapy brain, I think that's really where it just operates in a different way. So when you're watching someone move, you can tell where they have pain, and you can tell potentially even right away where they may have limitations, and know some of the things that they could do to help improve that situation, improve that movement pattern. Maybe it's a weakness situation, maybe it's an instability issue. And so I think we're just really excellent experts at picking apart how and why someone's body is maybe not working or moving in an ideal manner and addressing that. And then also, because again, it's all a matter of physics and biomechanics, taking that to what are they doing on the job site, and what does that job or task require of their body? How is it making their body move? And are there maybe ways that we could change that job or task to be easier on their body? It really coordinates and collaborates together really seamlessly, because a lot of most injury happens just because the body is overstressed in some way, shape, or form. So we have to figure out, how can we reduce the stress on the body? Maybe that's changing the environment, but a lot of times that might be changing what the person is doing with their body. Maybe they need a different position. Maybe they just simply aren't strong enough to do this. They need some conditioning to be able to handle this activity better. Maybe they're physically too tight to do that amount of movement or that extreme movement safely or as often as they're doing it. And if they work on some stretching or they improve that mobility, their body's then going to be able to handle that activity well. So I think we just are uniquely positioned to be able to not only assess how is the work task affecting the person, but what's going on within the person that we could maybe have an effect on to help them handle the work task better as well.
Excellent.
Nailed
Go ahead,
it.
Abe.
I got nothing to add. I'm so glad that I deferred that one. It's perfect. That's really it. Like I guess the one thing that I'll add as a little anecdote, like this is probably 2-3 years ago, my nephew, 10 years old at the time, just asked, like, what does a physical therapist do? I'm like, but I just help people move better. Like, that's it. And really, that's kind of what that's the frame of reference that PTs will bring to the table. And better is subjective, obviously. And so then we get to coordinate well with our teams on site to say, like, what does better mean? What is our objective? What's our goal? The additional piece that PTs have really kind of been hammered into our brains is everything has to build towards a larger whole, and you have to be working towards a goal. If we're working in a clinic, you have to define goals on every plan of care, otherwise insurance will deny your claim. So like, that's just part of who we are. It's like, why are we doing what we're doing? And I think that lends itself really well to coordinating with our production managers, with our engineering teams, and just to say, like, what is it that you're looking for and what does better mean? And then we can take our PT knowledge and fit it into that so that we are actually marching towards the same objective. So those are kind of two different things that I think PTs do well.
When you both touched on this, I want to go just a little bit deeper. I think the word injury prevention gets thrown out a lot. It's still kind of a buzzword. Just people say, oh yeah, we're doing injury prevention. Yet I would be remiss if I didn't say I'm looking for what other groups are doing to prevent injuries from happening. And I feel like it's lacking in some spaces, right? So for the two of you, what do you consider to be injury prevention? And what type of tools are in your toolbox to help prevent musculoskeletal injuries from happening?
I think a lot of companies, organizations, I don't know, they sort of see injury prevention as a thing, an entity, a program that we put in place. We're going to prevent injuries because we're going to create this stretching program that everyone's going to do every day. We're going to prevent injuries because we are providing the right kind of tools and the right amount of protective equipment for each person to do this work safely. So there's a lot, and all of those are really important components of keeping a worker safe on the job site. But you can create the perfect environment and give somebody all the protective equipment in the world, but you still aren't going to have full control over the human action, right? There's still the scenario of human action, human error, human will. And I think that's where the PT has the greatest value in preventing injury is we've already established rapport and connected with this worker. They know, like, and trust us. And so when we are out on the job site and we see them doing something that's potentially going to put their body at risk or make them be sore, we have the capability of educating them on that situation and giving them the tools that they need to know about what they need to do to keep their body safe. I'd also hopefully be able to connect with them on a level to educate them on the why behind it. Like you said, you can put the greatest program in place, but if people don't understand, like, how is this going to benefit me, or like, why would I care about doing this every day? They're not going to have a lot of great consistency with doing it. And I think that's another component of why a PT does such a great job of that, because we can create the programs that are perfect for this job environment. We have that rapport developed with the worker already. They know, like, and trust us. We can educate them on the why behind why they do this. And then we're also there every day to sort of help walk them through it. Oh, I see that you're kind of struggling with your back. Can we do those stretches that we talked about? Let's walk through them and do them. And once the individual has some experience of actually doing the movements and feeling the benefit of them, then, you know, they now understand, and it's like a light bulb has gone off, like, oh, doing these little stretches every 20 minutes really does help me have no back pain at the end of the day. And then you have changed the behavior and you have really prevented injury from the root cause level.
So what I'm hearing you say, Nicole, is the basis is having that rapport, the trust, and know, like, and trust us, and then really connecting with people and educating them on their own bodies, on the why, so those things can hold true. It's not a flavor of the month, you know, here's your stretching program, go do it, right? Which we've seen so many times again and again. People, you know, companies wonder why it didn't stick, right? But connecting with people, giving them the why on an individual basis, or a small group or large group, we can still get across the why. But I think, like you said, that is the key of trying to prevent injuries, is making it relevant for the person so they know why they're doing that task, which is that's super important. Abe, thoughts on injury prevention and preventative things you've been working on?
Yeah. I think, like Nicole touched on, injury prevention is multifactorial. Like, injuries happen for so many reasons, and we've talked about a little bit. Like, our first goal is to just understand the systems, right? Is to walk out there, understand the people, understand what we're stepping into. So as a PT going out on the floor on the job site, like, we want to understand your job first, and then once we understand the job, we can start to see some of those common pitfalls that, like, if we know that your job entails being in a standing workstation all day long with no ability to turn and move your feet, like, yeah, you're going to have knee pain. You have nothing, and you're standing just on concrete. So, like, okay, we're here. We're already at a point where it's just like, we can see it and we know. And that's the easy stuff. But then it's also the digging in a little deeper to understand, like, what's your shift schedule? Oh, you're starting every day at 4 a.m. and you're working until 2 p.m. and you haven't adapted your sleep because nobody told you that this is a thing, and that human beings more or less need 7.5 hours of sleep to function well long term. I know there's people out there that can do less, but being able to talk through those pieces of seeing, like, kind of our big tripod of wellness. It's going to be sleep, it's going to be exercise, and it's going to be nutrition. Hydration falls into nutrition in my world. So it's like those being able to talk through those things, understanding how not only the job, but understanding how the job fits into life. Those are pieces that you only get with a consistent presence versus coming in saying, we're going to do this one thing and then we're going to step back out. I think that this is, just working with individuals to try to enact behavior change over the last 10 years. The one thing that does not work is just telling them, do this, and then not giving any background, right? I know a lot of things that, I don't know many things that do work, but I knew one thing that does not work, and that is it. It does not work to just say, like, do this. So we build that base, and then, specifically to your question, Melissa, like, what does the injury prevention look like? It's doing safety walks with our professionals. It's doing ergonomic stop to fixes. It's documenting those processes and cascading them up. It's doing a systematic ergonomic review of a problem area and saying, we're going to stop, we're going to dig in deep and just look at what's going on in your warehouse and why are these things happening. We know that we need to look at the warehouse because we're also looking at our reactive data to say, you've got a lot of shoulder injuries in your warehouse. What's going on here? So then we can actually get ahead of it. It's doing coordinated educational initiatives that start as a new hire. So your new hires get trained up on like big ergonomic basics of like, how's your body supposed to function? What is core neutral? What's a power zone? What is a position that you should be working in for power tasks, precision tasks? And then how does that relate to work at company X, right? So how does that relate as you're building your widgets, right? And then what does that look like when we build out a new widget line, right? So are the engineers trained in on this too? So that's one thing that I love about our team is they're always pushing to say like, hey, let's not just react to after the workstation's been built. It's like, we know the engineers. Why don't we just work directly with the manufacturing engineers to say, you're building out a brand new line. Let's make it a gold standard. Let's make sure everything checks the boxes, not just for the generic workstation setup, but for the 5th percentile Asian female, who's your most likely worker, because she's much shorter than I am. And if she's working there, I shouldn't have a workstation that's fit for me. So that's true injury prevention. That again, it only comes from having a consistent presence and a desire to understand. People who are going to ask the questions, not just say, that should be at 42 inches, next problem. Right? So it's more in depth than that.
It's harder. I mean,
it is, for sure. It's more fun though.
Yeah, it is, and it's impactful. But I would say when we're talking about injury prevention, like I heard so many good nuggets in what you were saying as well, Abe, about looking at people very holistically. Right? It's not just them doing the work, but they bring their whole selves to work. And it's emotional, it's mental, and it's also the health things that most people either maybe know, maybe don't know. And that holistic approach is so important. But then, like you mentioned, connecting with safety and connecting with engineers, truly trying to get upstream to engineer out some of those problems if possible, but also looking at those employees holistically versus just coming in and giving some kind of recommendation without considering the people that are going to be doing that work. So a lot of good nuggets in that from both of you. This may actually get some questions from the group. I'm going to ask it, and if you have a question, what we're going to talk about next, please put it in the chat. So the question still comes up, that is having a physical therapist on site, is that compatible with OSHA's rules and regulations, right? And I still hear people say, we can't have physical therapy at our place of business because OSHA says we can't, or a physical therapist can't do first aid, or whatever that comment might be. But can you tell me a little bit more about the rules of OSHA and how physical therapy falls within those rules and regulations, and how we work within non-work related and work related visits with seeing people?
Sure. Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that OSHA has been really good at here. They've defined very clearly what first aid is, and then they've given us letters of interpretation when people ask for clarification, which has been super helpful. First aid is a defined list of 13 different treatment categories, right? So for our perspective, the stuff that's gonna happen most frequently, hot and cold therapy, right? Massage, non-prescription medications, non-prescription strength, soft bracing, those type of things. And then the big one is education consultation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we can really make a difference. OSHA said that it doesn't matter who provides first aid. First aid
Right.
is first aid. So if I, as a physical therapist, hand Melissa an ice pack after she bumps her knee at the office and has a work-related injury, that's first aid. If Griffin is at the office and he hands her the ice pack, still first aid. Griffin's not a PT. Does not matter. So having that PT in place, our licensure designation does not change the treatment provided. It's all about what treatment is provided. We can do a ton with education, consultation, massage, and then modification of previous programs. And so that's really ties back into all the things that we've already talked about with
Mm-hmm.
injury prevention. Our goal on site is to be there and start educating the entire workforce on appropriate movement, on best practices to move and feel well,
Yeah.
so that after an incident occurs, we're just referencing back to what they already know. And this is almost just like an SOP for your company, right? Everybody knows that we're going to do these movements to prepare for work, and that best practices after you've been working at this workstation, we're gonna do some micro breaks every half hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after an injury, if we've got a neck issue with a welder, I'm just going to tell them, hey, John, I want you to do the micro breaks that we already talk about every single day. And
Back to the
sometimes
basics.
that's enough. It's that.
Yeah.
And then it's having somebody with knowledge of the human body and understanding to say, this is going to be okay. Right? I've seen this many, many times before. You're going to do the right things here by going back to our basics of doing our micro breaks. You're going to ice. Right, you can take ibuprofen as you need to. Just take it as written on the bottle. We're going to do this non-rigid brace, and I'm going to see you in 3 days. And we're not going to establish a physical therapy plan of care. PTs have been very rigid in what actually constitutes physical therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not what we're doing on site. We're taking our PT brains to guide people into caring for themselves well, and that's first aid.
Wouldn't you also say that if people have something, an acute injury, if they've never had that issue before, or they've never sprained an ankle before, they kind of want to just know that their, foot's not going to fall off, that they're going to be able to walk normal again. It's really just managing the expectations of this is a normal thing. You're going to have discoloration. You're going to be swollen here.
Yes.
And they think you're magic, right? Because you're like, just the course of
you've seen
how
into the
things
future.
feel. Right. This is how things go. So it's perfectly fine. Yeah, that is super important. I really appreciate that. Giving that background, because I think that that's important when we talk about physical therapists, when we talk about other providers. We've already talked about, being those movement experts, gaining the rapport, gaining the trust, preventing injuries through our PT brain, collaboration and education, and pulling all that together. But we also provide non-work related physical therapy visits. That can be confusing to some people that don't understand maybe why or understand direct access. So first of all, why is it a benefit to provide non-work related physical therapy at a place of business?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times already, but people come to work with their bodies as they are, and very few of us have bodies that are functioning at 100% in all areas. Most of us all have some element of previous injury, weakness somewhere. We have things that are not functioning at top level about our bodies all the time. If left to their own devices, it's usually these minor imperfections or these minor like movement pattern issues or mobility deficits, strength deficits. Those are the things that can eventually lead to an on-site injury because the person wasn't able to function at 100%. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why it's important to try and intervene early. When somebody initially is having an ache or a pain, I mean, that's your body's signal that something's not functioning right. And if the right knowledge and the right education is available to that person to intervene and change that situation right away, then it's not going to have the opportunity to progress into a more significant or severe injury further down the road. I mean, that's kind of the most obvious and like on paper, like why we would find it important to treat personal injuries or kind of these initial aches and pains, so that it doesn't turn into something larger. But I think an underground benefit to it also just goes back to the employee feeling cared for. If we're providing, you know, if their employer cares enough about their employees to provide someone to help them feel better, help them work through their aches and pains, even stuff that maybe they acquired on their own or, you know, due to an incident that happened outside of work, but I'm still providing this person, this healthcare provider to help you through some of those situations. They definitely feel a lot more cared for. They have better job satisfaction. And pain is a huge factor when you're in pain. If you're in pain all the time, it's going to have a lot more repercussions than just potentially leading to a bigger injury. It's going to cause them to be distracted from being able to do their job appropriately. It's going to cause them potentially to not be able to sleep as good. And so now they're coming to work less rested and less productive and, you know, those kinds of things. And so being able to treat and manage aches and pains has implications that reach far and wide, just even beyond an injury prevention perspective.
I mean, that's a really, really good point. And if you think about all the barriers in healthcare right now, the cost of leaving work, the cost of the visit, if you go to a visit, if it's even a doctor and you're feeling like you're not being heard, or they don't get it, or any of those things, there's so many barriers for people to feel good that people are just not going and not being seen. I mean, how many times have you guys talked to one of these guys or gals you built rapport with that was like the angry curmudgeon person, that they say they haven't been to the doctor in 10 years. They haven't been to the doctor in 20 years. I don't have to go. I'm fine, right? But then we know that there's a level of barriers. There might be a level of distrust. And I think that's important to note that we're there to take down those barriers. That's really going to be important. And speaking about that, this sounds great, right? Sounds super easy. Sounds great. We're just going to be physical therapists. We're going to be on job sites. We're going to be in manufacturing locations. Easy peasy, but we know there's always challenges to being a physical therapist on site. Tell me about some level of a challenge or struggle you've had. And it could be anything from culture to trying to get a stretching program. It could be anything. Any examples of struggle that you've had to deal with, and then you've been able to just get it figured out. Nobody wants to talk about struggle. Everything's
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I'll go. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned already several of the things I think that we find as an on-site therapist is some of the challenges that you face. It's sort of navigating and breaking through potentially that distrustful culture. You know, people potentially have had experiences in the past that lead them to not want to admit that they have a weakness or that they might have an issue going on. And so it does take some time to get people to know and understand that we are there to help them. We are there to benefit them. And our services are not going to affect their job. You know, because they come to see us, it's not going to have a negative effect on what they're doing for their job. And so it does take some time to kind of break through that. I think too, there's also a certain amount of, it's not really a distrust, I guess, but you kind of have to break through the mindset or the culture of the own individual person, you know, and get them to recognize and know that they, in fact, are worthy of being cared for. They are worthy of feeling better and not having, you know, not being run into the ground all day, every day. Some of these individuals have been in these manual labor jobs, from a very, very young age. And, they've grown up, so to speak, in a culture where we're focused on productivity. We're focused on what can you give me? And they don't very often have somebody in their world that, is there to give to them. And so I think that's challenging too. Sometimes people, that's maybe why they blow off, minor aches and pains for such a long period of time, because they're like, oh, it's fine. It's just part of life. I just have to deal with it, not
Yes.
recognizing that they are worthy of having, a better day and not having to deal with some of those situations day in and day out.
Yeah,
Great
it's a mind
point.
shift for sure. It's
Yeah.
like, I think the mind shift for PTs as they come into this world, and then we're trying to enact a mind shift with the people that we work with. For PTs that come into this world, it's different because we're used to people coming to us and saying like, I'm hurting, can you please help?
Mm.
We're going to individuals and saying, how can we help? Right? And
Hmm.
the biggest challenge early on, I think, for a lot of PTs coming into this role, myself included, was like just lowering that perceived expectation that you have to fix everything today, because you don't and you can't, right? And like we in the clinic would always say like, you got to give them 3 things on day 1 just in case they don't come back, right? Because they got a
Oh,
copay, right? They got a copay. They took time off work, right? Now it's like, I'm gonna give them 1 thing, maybe, or I might just say like, hey, Johnny, come see me when you're ready, dude. You know where
yeah.
I'm at, right? My
Hmm.
office is up front. Um, don't worry, it's still on this side of the wall. I'm not in carpet land, like because you'll be safe here, right? We don't have to go into the office world because there's always that inherent distrust. But like, it's just allowing for that. I guess that was a struggle early on to say like, no, you'll be back Thursday. He's not ready yet, right? We can still just we can keep talking, we can make things better when the time is right. So it's just understanding the current state, giving counsel, and then understanding that like every single person is their own autonomous being. They're not going to come to you and change until they're ready. And that's hard because we want to help people. If you ask any group of physical therapists, why did you get into physical therapy? I've interviewed a lot of PTs
Money.
back in the day. They don't say money. If they did, they're wrong.
They're
Wrong
morons.
job.
They say, I want to help people, right?
Yeah.
And so we're helping people at their pace. We meet people where they're at, and that's physically, but it's also mentally. Where are you? Are you ready for that change? If not, hey man, I'll be back on Thursday, right? We'll chat then. And so yeah, it's just allowing things to occur at their pace.
Which is fun too, because it's like they're not going to be no shows or non-compliance. Like, I'm going to find
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
nothing's worse than when you're walking around, all of a sudden people are like, posture. It's like this unwritten rule that everyone, is focused on their posture because they know you're the physical therapist, and
Yeah.
things always go back to posture. So I want to end on a high note and then open it up to any questions. This sounds great. I know I love the space. You guys are rock stars. And can you give me an example? We've talked in general, but do you have a favorite success story that you want to share? Or are there just so many?
Because it's popped into my head as we've been
Yeah.
talking. So one of my sites that I've worked at is a manufacturing site that has welders. Welding is in the back corner. My office is towards the front. There is a welder there. I've used the name John twice already today, so I'm going to call him Johnny. Right. So Johnny the welder, older individual, about 60 years old, and he has been dealing with back pain for a long time. Every time on my rounds, I'd walk by Johnny and ask how he's doing. We talk about deer hunting. We talk about the kids. He's got a couple of black lab dogs. Talk through all those things. Ask him how his back's doing. Oh, I've been seeing the chiropractor. All right, Johnny, is that helping? Kinda. All right. Well, if you need anything, you know where I'm at. Come back a while later. Same thing. How's it going? Well, it's not really helping. Okay, what are you guys working on? And he describes a couple of things to me. I've never really seen Johnny walk. So like, Johnny, let's go for a little walk here. Watch him walk. Very clearly, not his back, definitely his hip. So we talk a little bit more. I tell him, hey man, come up to the office. I got to run a couple of tests. We got to see it and I can confirm. I think this is something different. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Takes about another 3 weeks. Finally, I can't stand watching him walk this way anymore. Johnny, you're
John.
coming up to the office. I have to do 2 quick tests laying on the table. We confirm. It's like, John, this is your hip. You need to go see an orthopedist. Here's 3 names. Go today. He goes. He has what's called avascular necrosis of the left hip. Literally, the ball in the socket was dying.
Yeah.
John got a new hip. Johnny's feeling great. He's back to work.
And then how's Johnny walking?
Walks like a champ.
Walks
He's got
like
a
champ.
little bit of a mild Trendelenburg, a chronic weakness on that side, but other than that, like, he's doing awesome.
That's
deer hunting next
fantastic.
week.
See, that's an amazing success story, because it shows that level of building rapport. It shows that movement expert piece, and it shows meeting people where they're at when they're ready to talk. That's awesome. Nicole, do you have a favorite success story you want to share?
Oh, there's a ton of them, to be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, there's two different types of scenarios, I guess, pop into my mind. One is, similar in the sense that I think you'll run into people frequently that have been dealing with pain or dealing with an injury for a really long period of time. They
Mhm.
likely have been to see, multiple other physicians, maybe even have had surgery on this situation, but it continues to linger and continues to be a limitation for them. So one case in particular, again, back pain situation, but this individual has had back pain for a number of years, has had previous surgery, has another incident that sort of flares up the symptoms again, is in the middle of going to physicians, getting MRIs done. And of course, along the way, they tell him, well, in order to proceed further or to qualify, right, for surgery, you have to go to physical therapy first. So he's, of course, not happy about this because he doesn't think that physical therapy is going to help. He's like, I've been through this before. I know what's going to help. I just have to get surgery done, but whatever. I'm not, they're making me go to see a physical therapist. He wasn't going to do it, but then, figured out that there was actually a physical therapist on site. And so he's like, well, fine, maybe I'll go check it out and see, what they're going to tell me. Zero trust that this is going to be helpful, beneficial, etc. And so same thing, right? Person comes into your office and they're just very like curmudgeon-y and you can tell they really don't have any intention of like listening to what you say. So you just have to like work through that and, take them through some evaluation and have them try some things. But long story short, this individual came even in that very first visit for in physical therapy through the course of taking him through some tests and taking him through some treatment strategies. He gets up off the table and is walking around and has no back pain, no leg pain. And he, gets pretty emotional about it because he hasn't had that sensation in well over 15 years.
Wow.
And so just in the course, if I think it just is a good example of people have kind of a preconceived notion of like what the problem is and where we need to go to fix it. And so often that tends to be the medication route or the surgery route and things like that. When ultimately, again, the body is a machine. And if you can put it back into the right alignment or you can make those pieces work together in the right way, the body has a great capability of healing itself. And so there are lots of scenarios where we don't have to go to those drastic treatment measures in order to get things working well again. And I think the cool part about that situation is he probably never would have gone to therapy on his own. He never would have gone to a clinic offsite, et cetera, because he didn't have any like trust that that would be beneficial. But because it was available on site, he's like, whatever, fine, I'll give it a try. And now, years later, he still has not had any recurring issues with his back pain. Because not only did he get it fixed, right? Like it's not about just fixing it, but he learned the movement, the position, the postures, the whatever, the reason why his body wasn't functioning the way that it should. And so now he has the self-management capabilities to manage those symptoms if and when they might start cropping up again. So you've not only like helped him in this moment, but he now has the tools to take care of that situation, basically forever.
I love that so much, because you really just showed again in rounding it out and all the things that physical therapists know. There's no other medical provider that understands movement and what's tight, what's weak, how do we fix it? Is this education? Is this position? Like you guys mentioned throughout the webinar today, so many unique things that physical therapists know and we've learned, and applying that to preventing injuries and applying it to people that have a lot of barriers to normal care, or they're the people that are stoic and they just say, I'm just going to work through it. I'll be fine, right? Or they assume they're going to have aches and pains forever. Because like you mentioned, Nicole, they took a manual labor job. Like, that's what I signed up for. So to find those wins, I think is the bright light on why we do what we do, which I personally think is the best way to help people and be a physical therapist, is really taking away the barriers and being right where they are. Griffin, I was going to ask if there's anybody's got any questions.
Let me check. I do not see any questions right now, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we had some time at the end if there were any questions. In fact, if you wanted to take yourself off speaker and ask a direct question to one of these two superstars, you can.
Let me see if I can change that right now. Might be able to.
Oh, wait, because we said just put it in the chat. I'm sorry.
No, so I think I can change the settings right now, no, so people can unmute.
That's okay. I think if they had questions as we're going, they might have asked. But I believe in the chat, if you want to look, if you have individual questions about either being a physical therapist on site, how you could bring on-site physical therapy to your place of employment and the benefits. We didn't even talk about ROI. We didn't even talk about the value and the value proposition we bring to clients, because I really was hoping today we'd be more focused on you too, and the benefit of what a physical therapist is and does. And there's that whole part that could be a whole nother webinar with the value proposition, the ROI, how are we capturing all the great things that we do. Maybe that's a part 2 coming soon. We'll have to see. So if there's no questions, please note in the chat, that's my email, right, Griffin?
Yep.
Okay, that's my email. Feel free to ask me or email me if you have any questions you want to talk further. If you work with a company or you're a broker that works with companies, it really just starts with the question of, is there a fit between on-site physical therapy, injury prevention, all things we do, and then how does that incorporate?
We do have a question.
Awesome. What's the question?
From Tim Barth. How can we incorporate PT into a return to work program?
Awesome question. I'll take that, and then Abe or Nicole, if you want to pop in, let me know on this one. That's implying that there's been a work comp claim, an injury, and somebody has had some level of light duty or been off work and having to come back, right? So if they're seeing outpatient physical therapy, they need to complete all that course of action and go through all the recommendations from the doctor. But what we've realized, there's a gap between being at home, outpatient physical therapy, if there was or was not a surgery, and then true work tasks. So one way that we can help bridge the gap between if there was that injury that was requiring a return to work plan, job coaching, sometimes we can help people gradually get back into some of those tasks and really helping them with, what does this mean for now your work? So educating, coaching, but we're not doing that traditional physical therapy at that point. We're really just transitioning and bridging them back to their job. Hopefully that answered the question. Anything to add, Nicole or Abe?
Yeah, I think that's where when a PT is on site, they, even though the person has been through formal physical therapy, has been discharged, feels that they're ready to return to work, often that doesn't mean that they're truly at 100%. They're likely still going to have some remaining limitations. So the physical therapist can, really effectively evaluate that individual and figure out, like, what are the remaining limitations that you have. Also, I can go to your job activities. I can observe what's required of you doing these job activities, and then work together and brainstorm on the appropriate ways to safely get that person back up to speed, so to speak. Whether we are adjusting, how frequently they're doing that task, maybe we're making some small adjustments to the ergonomics of that task to reduce the stress of the body. But just being able to know and really pick apart what are their remaining limitations and what do we need to be aware of to make sure that we don't just recreate this situation all over again.
Well, I think you brought up a good point. It's also making sure that we've addressed the root cause. We don't want to put them back in a situation that caused the injury in the first place, right? So looking at that root cause and making sure that we've either addressed it, because the doctor probably has no idea unless they've been to the job site, which rarely happens, right? Let's see, Tim, one issue I see is that doctors, and then I lost it.
They're not great at doing restrictions. You're right.
Yeah, amen. Yep, agree. And we cannot give restrictions as physical therapists. We can do is we'll work sometimes hand in hand if we have good relationships with the doctors and saying like, hey, when you're ready to go back, let's talk about getting them back gradually, but we cannot write any level of work restrictions as physical therapists or a return to work plan. That's a very specific designation in the work comp system, but we definitely can bridge the gap.
Yeah, I think one area that could be helpful here is just, do you have a way to, as a company, to communicate to the physician what the job actually looks like? So like, what's your FJD process look like? Do you have a decent functional job description? Do your job descriptions have a function table built within them? So you might have it built out where this job requires an occasional reach overhead, but then you have broken down more specifically to say this is only for subtask B that requires the occasional lift or reach overhead. And so if we can isolate that subtask out of the job because it doesn't happen that frequently, then the employee can go back to work within that role. And we can say like, hey, we don't want them at substation B for the next 2 weeks, right? And then the physician can have that as a kind of modification to it. And that opens up doors. It gets people back into their work, gets them into full-time work a lot quicker, because we know the research shows that the sooner you can get people back to work, the better that their outcomes are going to be long-term. If you can keep them in work, the better their outcomes are going to be long-term. So I think that's one big way that we can help with that.
Well, and that's, I see that I can take myself off mute here, so I can talk better than I can type. So, but it's just one of those deals of that physical therapy, when body mechanics so much better, and being able to get the same job done but in a different way, I think is so critical. And so I guess I'm asking the question, Melissa, you brought up that wherever you're at, that physical therapists can't prescribe restrictions. So and this is going to have to be a question that I ask here in the state of Montana, is they, as of October 1st, they are able, physical therapists are able to be treating physicians. And stuff. So I'm working with some of the physical therapists there here in Montana to try to figure it out, because I have had so much good experiences with physical therapists, because they've taught me, as I age and part of my body's given up on me, how to do things differently so that I can still get the same job done without having to worry about potential weaknesses or failures that I might have.
Well, and you brought up a really good point that Montana is the first state in the country that is allowing physical therapists to evaluate and treat under the work comp system as a primary provider, which makes sense because we're the musculoskeletal experts. So in your case specifically, Tim, I do believe that physical therapist will have all rights to write the restrictions, because that's underneath their purview, but I don't know. I don't know exactly. I would
Thank
have
you.
to check the legality, but I would think that that's going to be the case. I would love to continue the conversation, but I also want to respect everybody's time today. I know that Abe and Nicole and I could geek out and keep talking and talking about all the really cool things that we have done on site, all the benefits. That could be a whole nother point, 2.0, 3.0 conversation. But again, if anybody's got any questions specific, you want to continue the conversation, please reach out to me. If you want to talk to Nicole or Abe, you can let me know that too. I'd be happy to connect you guys. But I thank you for your time today. Hopefully you got something out of it that
Thank you so
feels like it was
much.
worth your
Me
time
too.
and was beneficial. So with that, again, I want to thank all you guys for coming today. I want to thank Nicole and Abe for their time and their expertise. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. And thank you guys for joining us.